Rider lucky. Calloway's boots squeaked against the pristine floors of Orion Station as he bolted through the maintenance corridors, alarms blaring behind him. The heist had gone south the moment a Zenith Corp security droid detected his presence in the data vault. Come on, Rider muttered, fingers flying over his wrist console. The station's security system was adapting faster than he could outmaneuver it. 3 blast doors stood between him and his ship's docking bay, and his window of escape was closing fast. The first door unlocked with his override code. The second followed suit. But as he reached the third, his screen flashed red. "Access denied," chimed the AI's calm, infuriating voice. "Please remain stationary for security processing." "Yeah, that's not happening," Rider grumbled, pulling out his ionic scrambler, an expensive, illegal gadget that had cost him his last big score. He slapped it onto the control panel and activated the pulse. Nothing happened. Heavy boots thudded behind him, accompanied by the mechanical whir of security droids. Rider's pulse hammered. He hit the scrambler again. Still nothing. "Hands where we can see them!" the commanding voice echoed through the corridor. Rider slowly raised his hands, his mind racing through escape scenarios. The ventilation shaft above? Too small. The maintenance access? Too far. This time, he was well and truly trapped. "Well, gentlemen," he said, flashing his most disarming smile, "I can explain." A stun blast struck his chest before he could finish. As darkness swallowed him, Rider had one final thought. Guess my luck finally ran out. Rider awoke to the unpleasant sensation of cheap synthetic coffee being dumped on his face. Spluttering, he opened his eyes to see Madame Rosa glowering at him, her weathered face a mask of disapproval. "You're lucky I still owe you a favor," she said in her thick, gravelly accent. "Otherwise, I'd have left you in that cell." Rider groaned, pushing himself up. They were in the back room of Rosa's bar, the Black Star, a dimly lit dive on the station's lower levels, where criminals, smugglers, and information brokers gathered. "How long was I out?" 3 hours. Long enough for me to bribe the right people and wipe your name from Zenith Corp's system." Rosa set down her coffee mug with a sharp click. "What the hell were you thinking hitting their data vault?" "I had a tip about something valuable," Rider said, wincing as he stood. His muscles still ached from the stun blast. "Didn't exactly go as planned." Rosa's cybernetic eye whirred as it zoomed in on him. "Actually, it did." She tossed a small data crystal onto the table. Rider caught it instinctively, frowning. "How? Your scrambler may have failed on the door, but it still downloaded the data packet before security nabbed you," Rosa said. "They found it when they searched you. I had my slicer extract it before they even realized what they had." Rider turned the crystal over in his hands. "And what's on it?" Rosa's expression darkened. "Something that could either make you very rich or very dead." She activated her wrist console, projecting a redacted document into the air. Rider caught glimpses of phrases like psionic potential and military application. "Zenith Corp has been keeping a secret. A big one," Rosa said. "My slicer could only decrypt part of it. But it's about a prisoner. Someone they're holding aboard their flagship, the Helios." Rider whistled. "Must be important. More than important." Rosa studied him. "Ever heard of the Athari?" Rider frowned. The name stirred something in his memory. Old spacer legends, usually dismissed as myths. "The telepaths? Thought they were wiped out centuries ago." "All except one," Rosa said, tapping the crystal. "Zenith Corp has her." Rider leaned forward, now fully invested. "You're telling me they have a live Athari? Her name is Saria, last of her kind, if the files are accurate." Rosa zoomed in on the document. "They've been keeping her in a specialized containment cell for 6 months, experimenting on her, trying to weaponize her abilities." Rider's eyes narrowed as he read over the file. Neural suppression. Psionic conditioning. "How much do you think someone would pay for this kind of intel?" he asked. Rosa deactivated the holo with a sharp motion. "This isn't about credits, Lucky. If Zenith Corp cracks her abilities, They'll have the power to read minds, control thoughts, erase secrets. No one in the galaxy will be safe. Ryder exhaled slowly. He'd had plenty of dealings with Zenith Corp before. They weren't exactly known for ethical business practices. But this was something else. So, what's the play? He asked, already knowing he'd regret it. Rosa smiled, one of her rare, dangerous smiles. I've got a contact who can get you maintenance credentials for the Helios. They're due for an annual systems inspection next week. You get in, locate the prisoner, gather proof of what Zenith Corp is doing, and get out. Ryder laughed. Just like that? Stroll onto their flagship and walk out with their most classified asset? You have a better idea for paying off the debt you now owe me? His laughter faded. She had him there. He rolled the data crystal between his fingers. What the hell was he getting himself into? All right, he said, sighing. What's the plan? 3 days later, Ryder stood in his cramped ship cabin, adjusting the collar of his maintenance uniform. The credentials Rosa's contact had provided were flawless. His ID badge identified him as Jonas Hale, Level 3 Environmental Technician. Outside his viewport, the Helios loomed, a behemoth of steel and light, the pride of Zenith Corp's fleet. Ryder had stripped anything illegal from his ship, the Starfall, in case he needed a fast getaway. Time to look the part, he muttered, smoothing back his hair and practicing the exhausted expression of an overworked technician. Security processing was easier than expected. His credentials passed inspection, and the guard barely glanced at him as he joined the flow of contractors boarding the ship. Inside, the vessel was a labyrinth of pristine hallways and bustling crew members. Ryder checked his datapad, which displayed his assigned maintenance routes. Rosa's contact had arranged for him to service environmental systems across multiple decks, giving him an excuse to move freely. He started with real maintenance work, adjusting oxygen regulators, logging atmospheric readings, all while studying the ship's layout and security patrols. By mid-shift, he had a lead, level 47. That's where the containment labs were. Getting there wouldn't be easy. High clearance access, tight security. But Ryder had never let small details like that stop him before. As he mapped his way through the ship, a thought nagged at him. This was supposed to be a simple intel-gathering job. Get in, gather proof, get out. But if Zenith Corp was really torturing this woman, could he just leave her there? Ryder sighed. He already knew the answer. This mission just got a lot more complicated. Saria was starting to glow. Faintly at first, her violet skin took on an almost ethereal luminescence. Your powers are returning, Ryder observed. Saria exhaled, eyes flickering with golden light. It feels like waking up, she said softly, like remembering who I am. Well then, Ryder glanced at his wrist display. 5 minutes until the next patrol. Shall we finish this? Saria nodded, determination burning in her gaze. Tell me something truly ridiculous. Ryder thought for a second, then smirked. Ever hear about the time I accidentally started a religious movement using interpretive dance and expired protein bars? The story that followed was embarrassingly true, absurdly detailed, and exactly what was needed. By the time Ryder got to the part about the synchronized zero-gravity worship ritual, Saria was doubled over with laughter, her entire form radiating with energy. The containment chains shattered. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then, alarms blared across the ship. So, Ryder said conversationally as Saria stepped through the dissolving energy field of her former cell. I don't suppose you'd be interested in a slightly illegal exit from this fine establishment. Saria looked at him, power still crackling around her like a living storm. Lead the way, human. Call me Lucky. We'll see if you deserve that name. As they sprinted into the corridor, alarms howling and voices shouting in pursuit, Ryder couldn't help but grin. Sometimes the best plans were the ones that sounded absolutely insane, until they worked. Now they just had to escape one of the most secure ships in the galaxy. No big deal. The corridor ahead erupted in laser fire, forcing Ryder and Saria to dive behind a maintenance panel. The wail of alarms filled the ship, boots pounded against metal flooring, and the distinct hum of containment fields activating told Ryder that things were about to get much worse. "So," he said, checking the charge on his stolen blaster. "Good news and bad news. Good news, we're only 3 decks away from the docking bay." "And the bad news?" Saria asked, golden eyes scanning their surroundings. "We're surrounded." She closed her eyes for a brief moment. 20 guards ahead, 15 behind. "Any chance you could—" Ryder wiggled his fingers suggestively. Saria shot him a look. "My powers are still unstable. I might accidentally tear a hole in the hull." "Well, that'd certainly be one way to create a distraction." A laser bolt struck the wall just inches from Ryder's head. "Less joking, more escaping," Saria suggested. "Fair point," Ryder admitted, pulling up the ship's schematics. "Cargo transport tube, 2 corridors over. If we reach it, we'll be cut down before we get halfway," she finished. "Not if you provide a distraction." He met her gaze. "Think you can manage something impressive? But, non-hull breaching?" Saria's lips curved into a dangerous smile. "I might. But you'll need to make me laugh first." "Now? In the middle of a firefight?" "Consider it motivation to be genuinely funny." Ryder sighed. "Okay, how about this? What's the difference between a Zenith Corp security officer and a black hole?" A volley of laser fire forced them lower. Saria raised an expectant eyebrow. "One is a dense mass that destroys everything it touches," Ryder continued. "And the other is a naturally occurring phenomenon in space-time." There was a pause. Then, unexpectedly, Saria laughed. Her glow intensified, and suddenly, every overhead light in the corridor exploded in a shower of sparks. In the sudden darkness, her skin pulsed with a luminous violet sheen. "Was that impressive enough?" she asked. "Oh, definitely." Ryder peeked around the corner. The guards were momentarily blinded, their formations thrown into chaos. "Ready to run?" Saria nodded. "Lead the way, Lucky." They sprinted through the dimly lit corridor, the guards shouting in confusion behind them. "Activate containment fields!" someone yelled. Energy barriers began flickering to life in front of them. But Saria, still riding the surge of power from her laughter, barely glanced at them before flicking her wrist. The barriers flickered, then collapsed. "Handy trick," Ryder commented as they ran. "Any others I should know about?" "Several," she admitted. "But they all require the right emotional trigger." "Is that a challenge?" They reached the transport tube, a massive cylindrical shaft used to move cargo between decks. Ryder quickly hacked into the controls while Saria kept watch. "Tell me you have a plan," she said, as heavy footsteps closed in. "Always," Ryder said. "You just might not like this one." The tube's access panel slid open, revealing a very long drop. Saria's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "Trust me." Ryder held out his hand with his most charming grin. "I've known you for less than an hour, and we're already about to do something incredibly stupid together. That's gotta count for something, right?" From both ends of the corridor, guards appeared. Saria sighed. "Insane," she muttered. But she took his hand anyway. "I prefer creatively optimistic." And with that, he pulled her into the tube. They plummeted. Wind howled around them as they fell through the massive vertical shaft. Ryder tightened his grip on Saria's hand, his other hand frantically working his wrist console. "Now would be a great time for another joke," Saria shouted over the wind. "Bit busy trying not to die," Ryder yelled back. "Fine. What did the quantum physicist say when he walked into a bar?" "What?" "He didn't." His wavelength was reflected by the potential barrier. Saria laughed, a bright melodic sound, and suddenly, their fall slowed. Telekinetic energy wrapped around them, cushioning their descent. "That," she admitted as they drifted toward a platform, "was terrible. But it worked." They landed softly on a maintenance deck, just above the docking bay. "See," Ryder said, brushing off his uniform. "Totally under control." Saria arched an unimpressed eyebrow. "Do you always improvise like this?" "Only on days ending in Y." Checking his wrist console, Ryder's grin faltered slightly. Good news. My ship's still where I left it. And the bad news? There's probably a full security team waiting for us. Sorry aside. And your plan? Oh, now it gets fun. Ryder started working on a nearby control panel. How's your acting? My what? Your ability to play a role, he said, smirking. Because I'm thinking, why sneak past security when we could just walk through them? Understanding dawned in Saria's golden eyes. You want me to use my powers to make them see something else? Exactly. Saria hesitated. It requires intense concentration and emotional focus. Perfect. Ryder finished his modifications. Ever wanted to be a Zenith Corp admiral? The plan, like most of Ryder's plans, was equal parts brilliant and absurd. And if they survived it, it'd make for one hell of a story later. I thought you weren't speaking to me after that mess with the counterfeit star crystals. Circumstances change. Rosa's cybernetic eye whirred audibly through the transmission. I have information you need, both of you. Saria leaned forward. About Zenith Corp? About why they're after us? And why he's immune to my abilities? A pause. Then coordinates flashed across their navigation screen, a location deep within the asteroid belt near Mars. Meet me here. Come alone. Ryder frowned. No offense, Rosa, but our last few encounters haven't exactly gone smoothly. This isn't about business, Lucky. It's about survival. Another pause. They're not just hunting you anymore. They're hunting everyone like you. Ryder exchanged a glance with Saria, who looked equally perplexed. Everyone like me? Ryder asked. Not over comms. 24 hours. Don't be late. The transmission cut. Silence filled the cockpit. Finally, Saria spoke. It could be a trap. With Rosa, it's definitely a trap. But she wouldn't call for no reason? You trust her? Ryder hesitated. Trust is a strong word. Let's just say I trust her to look out for herself. And right now, keeping us alive is apparently in her best interest. Saria studied him for a long moment. There's something you're not telling me. There are lots of things I'm not telling you. It's part of my charm. She crossed her arms. Jack. Ryder exhaled. I don't know why I'm immune to your telepathy, but... He hesitated. It's not the first time something like this has happened. Saria frowned. What do you mean? Remember when I said my ship's modifications were... unusual? Ryder gestured around them. I didn't buy them. I didn't steal them. I designed them. Every single one. And I have no idea how. Saria's golden eyes widened slightly. You're saying... I'm saying that sometimes... I just know things. How to build impossible engines. How to break security systems that shouldn't be breakable. How to make an Ithari laugh when she's trying very hard not to. A small smile flickered across her lips at that last part. But her expression remained serious. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't think it was relevant. He met her gaze. And because, for the first time in a long time, I was enjoying just being me. Not whatever Zenith Corp thinks I am. Saria was silent for a long moment. Then, without a word, she reached over and confirmed the course to Rosa's coordinates. Well then, she said. Let's find out exactly what they think you are. Ryder smirked. You know this is probably going to end in another firefight, right? Probably. She leaned back in her seat. You should start preparing your jokes now. Already have. How does an Ithari telepath order dinner? She sighed. How? She just thinks about it. Saria groaned, but her skin glowed faintly with amusement. That was terrible. You love it. I tolerate it. But she was smiling. As the ship sped toward Rosa's coordinates, Ryder had the nagging feeling that they were about to uncover something much bigger than either of them had imagined. But with Saria beside him, powers ready, wit sharp, he felt strangely optimistic. After all, They had already escaped Zenith Corp's flagship, dodged bounty hunters, and turned bad jokes into weapons. How much worse could things get? He was about to find out. Rosa's coordinates led them to an abandoned mining outpost hidden within a massive asteroid. The starfall slipped through a canyon of jagged rock, guided by old navigation beacons that flickered to life as they approached. "Well, this isn't ominous at all," Ryder muttered as they docked in a concealed hangar. "Ready?" Saria nodded, her golden eyes scanning the surroundings. "I sense something. Not Rosa, but—" She frowned. "It's like static in my mind." "That's new. And concerning." Ryder checked his blaster. "Want a joke to boost your powers before we go in?" "Is it another telepathy one?" "Nope. This one's about asteroids." "Save it. We might need it when things go wrong." They stepped cautiously from the ship. The hangar was dimly lit, filled with rusting mining equipment. Plenty of shadows for an ambush. Rosa's voice echoed through the chamber. "Welcome to my humble hideaway." She stepped out from behind an old drill, her cybernetic eye glowing faintly. "Still traveling together, I see." "We're good for each other's health," Ryder said. "She keeps me alive. I keep her entertained." "More than that, I suspect?" Rosa's organic eye narrowed. "Have you noticed any changes since you two started traveling together?" Saria stepped forward. "What do you know about his immunity to telepathy?" Rosa gestured for them to follow. "What I know is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. One that Zenith Corp has spent decades trying to keep hidden." She led them through winding corridors to an old control room. As they entered, flickering holographic displays activated. Data streams, images, schematics. 25 years ago, Rosa began. Zenith Corp discovered something buried in the ruins of an ancient civilization. Not Athari, she nodded to Saria, but possibly even older. She pulled up another display. They found evidence of genetic manipulation, experiments to create humans with enhancements. "Like telepathy?" Ryder asked. "Number like immunity to telepathy? And other things." She tapped a panel, revealing a series of brain scans. They called it the Nexus Protocol, a genetic project designed to unlock hidden abilities in humans. Most subjects showed nothing, but some were special. Saria moved closer to the scans. "These are Ryder's." Rosa nodded. "Taken when he was processed at New Orion Station." Ryder stared at the images, the strange patterns. "So what you're saying is, you're not just immune, Lucky." Rosa met his gaze. "You're part of something much bigger. Something Zenith Corp has been trying to perfect for decades." Saria's voice was quiet. "But why? Why create humans resistant to telepathy?" Rosa's expression darkened. "Because they knew the Athari weren't extinct. They were preparing for the day they found one, planning how to control them." The realization hit Ryder like a punch to the gut. They weren't just imprisoning Saria for research. They were testing their protocols against her powers. And now, they wanted both of them. Rosa activated one last display, a classified Zenith Corp document. Him, for his genetic markers. She turned to Saria. "And you, for what your abilities might unlock in him." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Ryder let out a breath. "Well, that explains a lot." Before anyone could respond, Saria suddenly stiffened. "We're not alone." The lights flickered, and a new voice filled the chamber, smooth, controlled, dangerous. "Very perceptive, my dear." A figure emerged from the shadows, a Zenith Corp director, and they were not alone. "It made you laugh." Saria's powers surged again, reinforcing their makeshift vehicle as it carved through the asteroid's rocky core. Ryder could feel the structure of the rock around them, an instinctive awareness guiding him as he adjusted the drill's course. "They'll follow us," Saria warned, checking the crude sensors Ryder had managed to cobble together. "Counting on it." Ryder nudged the controls slightly. "Remember what Rosa said about symbiosis? I think I finally understand what she meant. Saria started to respond but then stopped, realization dawning in her golden eyes. The asteroid's structure. Exactly. I can sense it. And with your powers. She nodded, placing her hand over his on the controls. Energy flowed between them, stronger than ever. The drill burst through into a massive cavern, this one untouched by machines. The walls shimmered, laced with veins of luminous crystal. Behind them, the echoes of their pursuers rang through the tunnels. One more joke, Ryder said softly. Saria glanced at him. What's the strongest force in the universe? He met her gaze, eyes glinting with mischief. This. And he kissed her. The surge of power that followed was unlike anything they had ever felt. It rippled through the cavern, through the crystal formations, through the very rock itself. As they broke apart, laughing, the walls around them began to collapse. Time to go! Ryder gunned their makeshift vehicle toward a distant glimmer of starlight, a fissure in the asteroid's surface. Behind them, Bond's forces scrambled to escape the cascade of falling rock. The last thing they heard was her voice, sharp with fury. This isn't over, Calloway! Then they were through the fissure and into open space. Their vehicle disintegrated around them as they floated free. But the starfall was already moving to intercept, its automated systems reaching for them like a lifeline. Watching the asteroid collapse in their wake, Saria turned to Ryder. That wasn't actually a joke, she said. No, he agreed, pulling her close as they drifted toward their ship. But it did make you laugh. She smiled against his shoulder. We still don't know what Zenith Corp really wants with us. True. Or what these abilities of mine really are. Or where we'll go next. He grinned. But at least it won't be boring. Saria smirked. With you? Never. 2 months later. Ryder and Saria sat in a dimly lit booth at the Galaxy's Edge Casino, a high-roller haunt on Mars, watching their plan unfold. Security chief just arrived, Saria murmured, golden eyes tracking movement across the crowded floor. Right on schedule. Ryder sipped his drink, feigning boredom while his mind ran through the final calculations. And our friend from the syndicate? 3 tables over, losing spectacularly at poker. She smiled slightly. Just as you predicted. Amazing what people will do when they think they're having bad luck. Ryder's fingers traced idle patterns on the table, activating the hidden tech they'd spent weeks planting throughout the casino. Speaking of luck, I still can't believe this is your plan. What's not to believe? He grinned. We're just going to rob the most secure casino in the solar system, manipulate 2 crime syndicates into a war, and use the chaos to infiltrate Zenith Corp's main research facility. Saria raised an eyebrow. Simple. Oh. And then we broadcast their illegal experiments to every major network in the galaxy. But you know, that's just the encore. She sighed. And I'm choosing to be part of this lunacy. Speaking of which, ready for Phase 1? Saria's violet skin shimmered faintly as she gathered her power. One last thing, she said. Tell me a joke. Why did the casino security guard quit his job? Why? He couldn't deal with the high stakes. Her quiet laugh sent a ripple of energy through the casino. Lights flickered. Cards jumped in dealers' hands. Security cameras glitched, just for a moment. That, she murmured, was terrible, but effective. Ryder stood, adjusting his tailored suit. Shall we? Saria rose gracefully, her silver hair cascading over the shimmering evening gown they had acquired for this mission. Together, they moved toward the high-stakes tables, where their true target waited. Senator Marcus Vale, a powerful politician, a Zenith Corp investor, and a man who had no idea he was about to lose more than just his money. Perfect. The senator was losing badly at quantum roulette when Ryder slid into the seat beside him. I couldn't help but notice your run of bad luck, Senator. Vale glanced up, irritation clear. This is a private table. Of course. Ryder set a credit chip down, one loaded with a very specific program. But perhaps I could offer some friendly advice? Vale's eyes flickered to the chip. His irritation wavered as he saw the amount displayed. "And you are?" "James Blackwood," Ryder said smoothly. "Quantum probability specialist." He gestured to Saria, who had positioned herself just behind Vale's chair. "And this is my associate, Lady Arya." Saria inclined her head slightly, her presence commanding attention. The shimmer fabric gown they'd chosen enhanced her alien beauty, while concealing several carefully hidden devices. Vale's political instincts warred with his greed. Finally, he nodded. "All right, Mr. Blackwood. Show me what you've got." Over the next hour, Ryder guided Vale through a series of increasingly spectacular wins. Each bet was precisely calculated, each victory timed perfectly to draw maximum attention. By the final hand, half the casino was watching. "One last bet," Ryder suggested, palming a second credit chip. "Something memorable." Vale, now thoroughly intoxicated by success and expensive bourbon, barely hesitated. He placed a wager so large that even the dealer faltered. As the quantum wheel spun, Saria touched Ryder's arm. Their connection flared, the numbers aligned. Vale won. Big. His ego practically radiated triumph as Ryder and Saria escorted him toward a private lounge for high rollers. He never noticed when Saria lifted his security credentials. He never realized that Ryder's credit chip had just copied every financial transaction on his personal device. As a server delivered drinks, one laced with a very specific cocktail of truth-enhancing compounds, Vale raised his glass. "You know," he mused, "I have some business associates who'd be very interested in your talents." Ryder smiled. "Zenith Corp associates, perhaps?" Vale froze, glass halfway to his lips. "How did you—" "Same way we know about Project Nexus," Saria said softly. His face drained of color. Ryder tapped the drink. "You might want to finish that, Senator. We've got a lot to discuss." As alarms blared across the casino, signaling the real chaos beginning, Ryder smirked at Saria. "Ready for Phase 2? Saria's golden eyes gleamed. "Tell me a joke first." And with that, their plan truly began.